Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss again about the CMO number 22 to 2010. And now we will proceed to topic 2, which is the operational provisions. So, let's start at section 13, statutory provisions on entrance and clearance. The provisions of section 1001 or 1 to 1025 of the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines, as amended on entrance and clearance of vessels, are deemed incorporated in this manual. So in section 14, the pre-arrival, so A, notice of arrival or NOA with estimated time of arrival or ETA. So A, the shipping agent or representative of any vessel engaged in foreign trade entering any of the Philippine ports of entry shall notify the Purse and Inspection Division, Bay Service Section or its equivalent office of the vessel's arrival and all the particulars at least 24 hours in advance. So B, upon receipt of the notice of arrival, or NOA, the customs inspector or E2M OIC of the Purse and Inspection Division, Bay Service Section, or its equivalent office shall perform the following functions. So these are the functions. The first is electronically verify the vessel registry number or principal and other vessel information through Client Profile Registration System or CPRS. Number 2, input the estimated time of arrival or ETA in the E2M custom system. Number 3, encode the time and date in the system and affix his signature on the hard copy of the notice of arrival. Number 4, furnish the customs boarding team a copy of the process notice of arrival or NOA. Letter B, assignment of customs boarding team. The boarding team shall be assigned by the Chief Bay Service Section or equivalent office through a duly signed assignment order. All documents except copies for the customs inspector on board the vessel shall be forwarded to the office of the Chief Bay Service Section or its equivalent office for transmittal to offices concerned. Next is the Inward Foreign Manifest or IFM and Consolidated Cargo Manifest or CCM contents. The hard copy of the Inward Foreign Manifest, required to be submitted by the master of the vessel to the boarding officer, shall contain the following information. So first, the bill of lading number. Letter B, the marks and numbers of cartons, drums, boxes, crates, and other forms of protective packaging for break bulk. So letter C, the container and seal number if container has an initial FCL, if full container load, and LCL if less container load. So FCL means full container load while LCL if is less container load. So letter D, number of packages. E, kind of packages like cartons, boxes, crates, drums, or etc. F, contents of description of cargo. G, shipper. H, consignee. I, gross weight in metric tons. J, measurement in cubic meters. K, port of origin, and L is notify port. So the customs senior boarding officer shall, with his initials, note down on all the copies of Inward Foreign Cargo Manifest delivered to him by the master of the vessel, the specific time and date when such documents were received. If the Inward Foreign Cargo Manifest is not in the English language, the customs senior boarding officer shall require its translation to English before accepting the same. So, if late submission, letter A, first offense is 10,000, then B, second offense is 20,000, C, third offense is 30,000, and number 2, non-compliant submission is 30,000. So, section 15, arrival, like the documents and permits. So, first, quarantine certificate for incoming vessels from a foreign port. Entry of vessels from any port or place outside of the Philippines shall not be permitted until they have obtained a quarantine certificate. So if it's outside the Philippines or any international, it must be issued a quarantine certificate. So under the authority of the Bureau of Quarantines. However, if a vessel has already been issued a quarantine certificate in the first Philippine port of entry, she will not be required it to undergo another quarantine formalities at succeeding ports of call in the Philippines. No person shall be allowed to board or leave the vessel before they are cleared by the Bureau of Quarantine, except the pilot who is governed by the quarantine regulations in such contingencies. The certificate shall be part of the required documents to be received by the customs senior boarding officer from the master of the vessel. So the documents and are permits. Number 2. Entrance of vessel from a foreign port. Upon arrival of a vessel from a foreign port, BOC OPM Form Number 9 or oath of entering vessel from a foreign port with customs documentary stamp duly accomplished by the master. In 4. The following customs personnel shall be the members of the customs boarding team. So, first is the customs senior boarding officer. Second is the customs inspector. Third is the customs guard or guards. Still on the section 15, the arrival. Letter C, submission of advance electronic manifest before arrival of vessels engaged in foreign trade through E2M custom system and penalties. So the submission of electronic copy of inward foreign manifest or EIFM and electronic copy of consolidated cargo manifest or ECCM must be done through any of the value added service providers or the VASP accredited by the VOC. The EIFM, in the case of shipping lines, must be electronically submitted at least 12 hours before arrival of the carrying vessel. The ECCM, in case of non-vessel operating common carrier, or NVOCC or cargo consolidator, co-loader, or breakbulk agent, must be submitted at least 6 hours before arrival of the carrying vessel. So registration of e-manifest. The system automatically registers a manifest in the 2M customs system if the manifest meets the submission deadline. However, if the deadline is missed, the concerned shipping line or agent should submit a formal request letter to the office of the Deputy Collector for Operations to allow a BOC-initiated manual registration of the manifest in E2M. Only the Deputy Collector for Operations can approve the request and execute the manual registration, or through the direct register function in E2M. A late or non-compliant submission fee will be charged for this procedure following the schedule of fines provided in Section 2521 of the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines, and as amended. Copies shall be presented to the office of the Customs Clearance Officer within 24 hours. So documents to be produced by master upon entry of vessel. The following documents properly accomplished shall be submitted by the master of the Customs Senior Boarding Officer. So these are the documents. First is the quarantine certificate or practically. B. The clearance of vessel from last port of call. C. Original and 4 copies of inward foreign manifest duly signed by the master. D is 3 copies of each of the following: crew list, passengers list for aliens as required by immigration law in force in the Philippines, copy of original duplicate of bills of lading, banded store list, narcotics and dangerous drug list, ship store list, mail list, firearms and ammunition list, cruise declaration list, parcel list, shipping articles, and register of the vessel of Philippine Registry. Letter A. Through cargo manifest, if any, which shall be deposited to the customs inspector and shall be returned to the master prior to departure to other ports. F. Cargo stowage plan or hatch list. G. If passenger vessel, 3 copies of disembarking passengers list, and third baggage declaration. So the customs senior boarding officer shall, after carefully comparing the copies with the original manifest, stamp each of such manifest on the last page thereof with a rubber stamp provided for that purpose, and verify that the necessary information required in accordance with. So only the customs senior boarding officer is allowed to stamp those such manifest. So all articles, wares, goods, merchandise, and any other cargo, including unaccomplished baggage and orders or in cargo from abroad, received by the master officers and crew of vessels without bills of lading, or not covered by manifest or parcel list, shall be subject to seizure as unmanifested cargo under the customs law. So distribution of inward foreign manifests or IFM, the hard copies. So the inward foreign manifest shall be distributed to the following offices. So first is the original copy, which is the Purse and Inspection Division or PID or equivalent office. B is the one copy of Commission on Audit or COA, the resident auditor, through the Office of the Commissioner or OCOM. Then one copy of Intelligence Group, and one copy of Assessment and Operations Monitoring Group or AOCG. Number 5. Permits for discharge and lading of cargo. Unless the vessel has put into in distress, the customs senior boarding officer shall, upon replacing the vessel under customs surveillance and control, issue a general permit. Such permit, however, shall not constitute an authority for the loading of export cargo or deliver of import cargo at shipside without the required entries or permits as the case may be. So the general permit shall be endorsed by the customs inspector. Endorsement of permits. So the following permits shall be endorsed on the reverse side thereof. So first is the general permit. Second, the shipside permit. Then permits for the sending of special consignments of cargoes to the piers or to the parcel section. Permits issued by a deputy collector for operations or its equivalent office for the transfer of cargo from one vessel to another. So all endorsement and return shall be signed over the printed name and executed clearly and legibly, especially with reference to any figures that may include it. All minor corrections shall be initialed by the endorsing officer, and all other permits shall be endorsed in the reverse side thereof. 7. The shipside permit. So, shipside permit, when duly processed and approved by the Collector of Customs or the Deputy Collector for operations or its equivalent office, as the case may be, is an authority for the customs inspector assigned on a vessel to allow the discharge of cargo specified in the permit at shipside and to lighters or underguarded. So there are three kinds of shipside permits. So first is the regular shipside permit, which is issued by the Deputy Collector for Operations or its equivalent office. Next is special shipside permit when cargoes do not belong to regular shipside cargoes, such as ballast, garbage, provisions, watering, bunkering, vessel parts. For repair the ships, agent has to get the authority from the Collector of Customs prior to the processing and approval by the Deputy Collector for Operations. So next is the temporary shipside permit, which is a written authority to discharge cargoes at shipside and to lighter as per order of the Collector of Customs. So several conditions are usually imposed in the issuance of this temporary permit, among which are that the cargo is underguarded continuously until released by the Bureau of Customs, that the lighter shall not be taken out of the customs designated barge pool area until the regular shipside permit is issued by the Deputy Collector for Operations or its equivalent office and is presented to the customs inspector of the carrying vessel, and the Deputy Collector for Operations or Chief Piers and Inspection Division or PID or its equivalent office may be duly notified of the discharge under the temporary permit. So pending issuance of shipside permit. Pending issuance of shipside delivery permit, the customs inspector on board may receive written requests from consignees, countersigned by the ship's agents, and approved by the Collector of Customs, the certain designated goods be charged into separate carrier. So provided that in case no permit is received by the customs inspector on board within 72 hours from the time of discharge, the Chief Base Service Section or its equivalent office shall be advised accordingly, so that the cargo may be sent to the customs designated barge pool area, piers, wharf, or underguarded. So the transfer note or boat note shall be made in sextuplicate by the customs inspector on board For cargoes delivered at shipside, the transfer note shall be the following: name of the vessel and registry number, name of lighter, name of broker and or consignee, shipside permit number, marks and numbers, kinds of description of goods, time and date lighter left alongside the vessel, names and signatures of customs inspector, customs guard in charge of lighter and the patron of the lighter, any other information and or remarks such as conditions set forth on the shipside permit by the collector of customs. So those are the transfer note. So, boarding sequence. The vessel upon arrival from a foreign port at the port of entry and after the issuance of quarantine certificate by the Bureau of Quarantine shall be boarded in the following order. So, first is the customs senior boarding officer, customs inspector, and customs guards assigned to the vessel. Second is the immigration officer. Third is the Department of Agriculture or Plant, Animal, Fisheries quarantine representative as required. Fourth is the other agencies or persons authorized by the collector of customs. So, customs boarding team on foreign vessel. So, first, the customs senior boarding officer shall place the vessel under customs control and surveillance by posting customs inspector and customs guards thereon. No person shall be permitted to go on board such vessel except the pilot, consul, health officials, immigration, and customs officer without the permission of the customs inspector on board the vessels. No tugboat, rowboat, or other watercrafts shall be allowed to go alongside the vessel to ferry any person to or from the vessel without a permit from the collector of customs or his duly authorized representative. Fourth is the unauthorized tugboats, rowboats, and other watercrafts shall keep away from such vessel engaged in foreign trades at a distance of not less than 50 meters. So, customs boarding team and foreign vessel, these are the policies that needs to be followed. So, next is the actual time of arrival or ATA of foreign vessel through E2M custom system. So, after boarding formalities, the E2M or OIC of Pearson Inspections Division Bay Service Section shall input the actual time of arrival or ETA from the boarding information sheet submitted by the customs boarding officer. So E, submission of supplemental cargo manifest. Supplemental manifest submission is treated as non-compliant or late submission and shall be subject to penalty as stated on Part 11, Section 14C of this manual. Supplemental e-manifest must be submitted in hard copies and electronic form within the period prescribed in CAO 6/2/2007 and CMO 37/2/2009. So, submission of supplemental e-manifest. Cargoes, containers not listed in the IFM but are otherwise recorded in the stowage plan must be covered by a supplemental e-manifest submitted to the VOC through the VAST not later than 48 hours from date of discharge of the last package from the vessel. So for cargoes, containers not listed in the IFM and stowage plan, the supplemental e-manifest must be submitted not later than 24 hours from the date of last package. In both cases, the Deputy Collector for Operations and the Chief Pearson Inspection Division monitor the 48 or the 24 hours rule as the case may be before authorizing the registration of the supplemental e-manifest into the Electronic Manifest System or AMS. So, unloading of cargoes. First is the containerized. First thing, discharging of containerized cargo shall be authorized only upon issuance of a general permit by the customs senior boarding officer. Next is thereafter, unloading of containers shall commence. During unloading, the customs inspector, customs guard on board foreign vessel shall verify the container numbers against the discharging sequence. So next is the customs inspector or customs guard shall check or inspect if container seals are intact. Submit discharging report shall be submitted upon completion of the unloading operation. So, bulk and break bulk. The clearance of cargoes for bulk and break bulk cargo shipments such as liquids, chemicals, petroleum products, and all other cargo shipped in bulk or break bulk, the duties and taxes of which are normally determined by weight, example, wood, steel, coal, grain, or etc., shall be governed by pertinent regulations, more particularly at CAO 3 to 2010 and CMO 18 to 2010. on procedure for the bulk and breakbulk cargo clearance enhancement program mandated under Administrative Order number 243 as amended by AO 243A. So, um, report and upon presentation of the proof of payment of duties, taxes, and other fees, as well as compliance with other prerequisites for valid importation. So, next we have here the unloading of bulk and breakbulk cargoes at shipside. Shipside discharge of cargoes shall be authorized only upon presentation of necessary shipside permit issued by the Deputy Collector for Customs. So, upon receipt of the shipside permit, the Customs Inspector assigned on board shall first verify the subject shipment covered with the shipside permit against the inward file manifest as the correctness of marks, numbers, quantity, kind of merchandise, weight, and etc. Issue a transfer note and duplicate covering the shipment mentioned in the permit, setting forth the conditions and or requirements imposed by the collector of customs on the face of the shipside permit. Next, assign on customs guard to check the shipside permit so that only those authorized to be discharged are unloaded. Next, assign a regular customs guard to underguard the lighter with the cargoes if the permit so stipulates. So, next is the when bulk cargoes are to be discharged onto lighters, the customs inspector shall not allow any cargo to be unloaded without first obtaining the ton or inch immersion table of the lighter from the patron. So after the discharge of bulk cargoes at shipside, the customs inspector on board must sign and attest to the long tally of the consignee surveyor report. So, cargoes shall be released upon presentation to the customs inspector on board, a statement of settlement of duties and taxes or the SSDT, duly issued by the formal entry division or its equivalent office. So, duties of customs inspectors related to import cargo. So, unless the collector of customs permits their discharge into the lighter or carriers to subserve public interest, all vessels arriving from the port shall discharge their import cargo at officially designated piers. So, letter B, all cargoes from vessels that go alongside the piers, except hereinafter specified, shall be discharged thereon, and no check or accounting shall be undertaken by the customs inspector on board by the vessel, except to satisfy himself that the cargo is actually thereon to discharge, and that the ship's checker is actually checking the cargo being discharged. C. All import cargoes discharged at shipside shall be checked by the customs guards, detailed for that purpose by the customs inspector on board, and for each carrier, the said customs inspector shall accomplish a transfer note showing the quantity and description of the cargo in each lighter or carrier. D. The customs inspector on board the vessel shall permit shipside delivery upon receipt of the shipside delivery permit, provided transportation facilities for the cargo described therein are available. He shall detail a customs guard to take an accurate account of the number of packages and their marks and numbers. So, E, in case where a discrepancy occurs between the check of the customs guard and that of other checkers on board as to the number of packages discharged into a carrier for shipside delivery, the customs inspector on board shall detail the same customs guard to accompany the carrier and check the cargo. So, F. The delivery of cargo at shipside is the most important duty of the customs inspector. He shall take every precaution to avoid mistake. He shall read every permit carefully to ascertain the kind of quantity of the cargo that he has authority to deliver. Letter G. The customs inspector on board may also receive written permits from the collector of customs or deputy collector for operations to send cargo for transfer to bonded warehouses, in which case he shall cause the goods to be checked by marks and numbers. H. Special permits are issued to send certain designated cargoes to the customs house. I. Packages manifested as parcels and those containing valuable goods, if the carrying vessel did not dock alongside the berth or wharf, shall be sent to the Bay Service Section PID on the birding officer's launch, if possible, if not on the agent's launch underguarded. J. Parcels listed articles shall be properly accomplished on BC Form number 174. K. Goods from a foreign port may be transferred directly from the carrying vessel to another vessel engaged in the coastwise or foreign trade upon receipt of written permission from the collector of customs. Importations of arms and ammunition shall be discharged immediately from vessel with the proper transfer note to be sent and to be receipted at the Customs Police Division for safekeeping and proper disposition. Goods remaining on board any vessel after the expiration of the period for discharge and not reported for transit or transshipment to another port may be unladen by the customs authorities and stored at the vessel's expense. Customs inspector must see to it that all cargoes listed for the port must be discharged at the port unless otherwise permitted by the collector to remain on board unguarded if the vessel should veer for other local ports. Instructions to customs inspector related to carriers receiving import cargo. So these are the instructions to customs inspector. So you can read it until A to H. It's from A to H. So it's quite long, so you can read it. Next is the 2.2 or unloading of cargoes at dockside. So import cargo. Import cargoes. All cargoes discharged at dockside from a vessel shall not be so not the advertisement. So not the advertisement guys. So import cargoes. All cargoes discharged at dockside from a vessel shall not be accounted by the customs inspector. However, a customs guard on each working hatch must see to it that the ship's checker is on board, making a tally of each sling, and if a sling goes down without a tally, the customs guard must stop the discharge from the hatch until such time that the checker does his job correctly. So these are the passengers' baggage, parcel list, and crew's personal effects. So, A. The customs inspector shall cause the immediate discharge of all baggage, parcel cargoes, and articles bought in by the ship's crews and passenger for discharge at the pier. So, B. The customs inspector shall remind the chief officer or the purser of the vessel, if necessary, that baggage and parcels must be discharged promptly and have the same transferred undergirded to the office of the Bay Service Section or PID, where proper receipt will be noted on the face of the transfer note. So, C. If baggage and parcels are to be discharged into a carrier in the stream, the customs inspector shall assign a customs guard to underguard such baggage and parcels to the office of the Bay Service Section, PID, where the receiving customs personnel in charge thereof will sign. So, for purposes of determining whether in cargo or entrusted shipments of merchandise or articles from abroad be included in the parcel list or BC Form number 174, hereunder is the criteria. Any cargo which is found to exceed 350 lbs, 159 kilos in weight, and 40 feet or 1.13 cubic meters in measurements shall not be included in parcel list, and as such, the customs inspector shall not allow the discharge unless the shipping agent concerned shall file a supplemental cargo manifest for the said parcel or cargo within 24 hours after the arrival of the carrying vessel and pay the corresponding duties and taxes with either the informal entry division or formal entry division depending on the weight and measurement of the said cargo. So, Section 16, the documents are the permits. First, the documents required for exportation. In general, export declaration. First is the export declaration. Second is the commercial invoice. C is the packing list. D is the export permit or for regulated cargoes. And 1.2 additional documents required. First is the CBW shipments, or the transfer note, certificate of identification, and certificate of inspection and loading. B is the PISA shipments, PISA transfer note, and PISA tally sheet. C is the provincial loading, or the transit cargo manifest. D is the constructive warehousing and immediate exportation, or the previous import entry and internal revenue declaration. Re-exportation bond and transshipment permit. E is the special permit to load, or letter request from shipping lines and list of containers intended for loading. So, inspector certificate of loading or report for customs inspector on board. So the inspector certificate of lading is accomplished by the customs inspector on board for a carrying vessel for all conventional export cargoes loaded into vessels. The inspector certificate of lading shall be accomplished in 5 copies and assigned by the customs inspector on board vessel. He shall submit the original copy of the inspector's certificate of lading, together with the working copies of the export declaration or permits, covered with a report to the export division or processing office, or its equivalent office, concerned within 5 working days after the departure of the carrying vessel to which the conventional export cargoes are loaded. So, customs clearance of foreign vessel. For purposes of clearances of a vessel, the following documents shall be presented to the PID clearance section prior to the issuance of clearance. So, A, we have the BOC OPM form number 12, or the outward foreign manifest, which needs to have 4 copies. One is the original copy, and second is the 3 photocopies. So next, the BOC OPM form number 10, the oath of master in manifest and clearance of a foreign port, needs 4 copies, which is the first one original copy with the customs documentary stamp, and the next is 3 photocopies. So letter C, the BOC OPM form number 11, oath of master to foreign vessel clearing without passengers, or 4 copies, 1 original copy with customs documentary stamp, and 3 photocopies. So next is the BOC form number 2, clearance of vessel to a foreign port, which needs to have 2 copies. First, original copy, customs copy with customs documentary stamp. Second is the original copy from master of the vessel's copy with original seal and signature of the collector of customs or his duly authorized representative. Letter E is the BOC OPM form number 3, clearance of customs inspector assigned on board, in 3 copies. First copy for clearance officer, second copy for the shipping agent, third copy for the customs inspector on board. So F, we have the BC form number 88, statistic supplemental, in 4 copies. J, Bureau of Quarantine clearance for outgoing vessels. H is the plant quarantine clearance. I is the post office clearance. J is a request for customs clearance by shipping agency signed by the customs inspector concurring that the vessel in which he is assigned is ready to sail for a foreign port. K, the register and shipping articles if the vessel is of Philippine registry. L is the consular certificate of entry if the vessel is of foreign registry when required. So those are the customs clearance of foreign vessel. So when a vessel from a foreign port is compelled by a stress of weather or other necessity to put into any port other than that her destination, such vessel in distress, or for bunkering, motoring, provisioning, sheltering, emergency repairs, landing sick crew member, or other like causes, other than for loading or unloading of cargoes, the customs senior boarding officer shall place the vessel under customs surveillance and supervision by posting the customs inspector on board. So, stuffing and loading of cargoes. First is a containerized. Instructions related to stuffing of containerized export cargoes. So, um, it's from A to H. First is the upon the issuance of the authority to load, the export declarations or permit duly processed at the export division shall be forwarded to the customs control division. B. The notice of stuffing shall be submitted at least 24 hours in advance, indicating therein the kind of quantity to be stuffed, the container number to which cargo shall be stuffed, the time stuffing will start, the address where stuffing will be done, and the name of the expert or the shipper. C. The assigned stuffing inspector shall not allow stuffing of export cargoes into the container van unless the duly processed export declarations or permits of the cargoes to be stuffed shall have been presented with the authority to load stuff thereon. So these are the instructions which is relative to stuffing of containerized export cargoes. So you can read this from A to H. These are the things that needs to be done, that needs to be submitted, or there are documents you can see here. There will be any documents or the responsibilities of duties in a containerized export cargoes. So this one, this is the duties and responsibilities of the stuffing inspector from 1 to 8. Then duty requirements and overtime work conditions, and inspector certificate of leading report of the stuffing inspector. So 1.2, the stuffing of containers in customs bonded warehouse. So when export cargoes are to be stuffed in containers at shippers customs bonded warehouse, the stuffing shall be supervised by the warehouseman. Upon completion of stuffing, the warehouseman shall seal the container and take note on his transfer note the number of the container, the kind and quantity of its contents, and also state therein that the same is to be transferred for the customs bonded warehouse to the distant port of loading. Customs guard assigned to the custom bonded warehouse shall underguard the container until properly received by the customs container control or loading inspector. So in 1.3, you can see the loading of bulk and break bulk export cargoes at ship site. So here you can see what are the how to load the bulk, the break bulk export cargoes at the ship site. So it's from A to D. First, the loading of export cargo shall be effected only upon the presentation to the customs inspector on board a duly approved loading permit. B. All cargoes at shipside shall have appropriate permits for such loading. C. Loading of bulk cargoes at shipside shall subject to weighing. D. Loading of containers, whether loaded or empty at shipside from lighters, shall not be allowed because of the difficulty of checking the numbers and contents of loaded containers should verification be required. So 1.4, the instructions relative to loading of containerized export cargoes. So it's from A to F. So you can also read here the what are the instructions for loading the containerized export cargoes. So next is the bulk and break bulk loading of export cargoes at dockside. Export permits covering export loading shall be presented to the customs inspector prior to actual loading. The customs guard shall make a tally of the actual packages or containers being loaded, checking the number of the packages, marks, and numbers against the export entry presented. So the customs inspector shall have no authority to inspect or open the goods being loaded unless otherwise authorized in writing by the collector of customs. So next is the 2.2, loading of bulk and break bulk export cargo. So the customs inspector on board the vessel shall permit the loading of export cargo only upon presentation of an authority to load issued by the following. These are the following. So he shall carefully verify the loading permit as to the quantity and kind of cargoes to be laden on board the vessel. He shall comply with the instructions appearing in the permit, if any, if the issuing authority. So be all for all exportations loaded at shipside, the exporter will send to the customs inspector on board of the vessel through the patron of the carrier a note or conduce which will show: first is the name of the vessel to which the cargo is consigned. Second is the name and license number of the carrier. Third is the number of bags, bales, cartons, etc. if it contains. Port is the name of the exporter and number of the export declaration. So this is the continuation of loading a book and break book export cargo. So you can also read it here. So loading of passengers, baggage, or crew personnel effects. So the customs inspector on board shall not examine incoming passengers' baggage. However, if no examiner is on hand during nighttime, Sundays, and holidays, the customs inspector on board may inspect and pass the hand-carried personnel effects of incoming passengers retaining on board articles, goods, and effects subject to duty and/or tax, which should be sent to the office of the base service section PID under transfer notes and underguarded. Outgoing passengers taking valuables or jewelry abroad shall be advised to secure certificates of identification from the export division, and it shall be the duty of the customs inspector on board the vessel to verify that such articles are actually taken on board by attesting on the certificate of identification that such jewelries are actually bought by the passenger on board. So we are now in section 17. Customs transit. Custom transit means the customs procedure under which goods are transported under customs control from one customs office to another. Customs transit operation refers to the transport of goods from an office of departure to an office of destination under customs transit. Custom transit by overland transportation shall be subject to such additional conditions as per customs authorities may impose, provided it shall be undergirded until received by the collector of customs or deputy collector for operations at the port of destinations, and provided further that the compartment where the cargo is stored or each and every package thereof be sealed with customs seal. So there are four kinds of custom transit operations. So A, from port of entry to another port of entry as exit point for outright exportation. So we have the local POM to Subic. So B, from port of entry to another port of entry or inland customs office. So POM to PISA or outside CY to CFS or off dock. C, from inland customs office to port of entry as exit point for outright exportation, PISA to POM. And from one port of entry to or inland customs office to another port of entry or inland customs office. So when import cargo is transferred from a foreign vessel to a coastwise vessel for transit to a coastwise port, the customs inspector sorry. So when an import cargo is transferred from a foreign vessel to a coastwise vessel for transit to a coastwise port, the customs inspector on board of the latter vessel shall require, besides the permit duly approved by the deputy collector of customs for operations, transfer note in duplicate and a transit cargo manifest in triplicate. He shall cause the cargo to be checked on board carefully by marks and numbers. All packages that are placed under seal shall be marked sealed and initialed by the assigned customs guard. The customs inspector, together with the master or chief officer of the receiving vessel, shall then execute a certificate on the face of each copy of the transit cargo manifest and in transfer note, which shall state the number of the packages received on board, the number of the packages short shipped where the cargo is stowed, the location and number of customs seal. So after the transit cargo has been received on board, it should be sealed. So section 18, the transshipment. Customs procedure under which goods are transferred under customs control from the importing means of transport to the exporting means of transport within the area of one customs office, which is the office of both importation and exportation, or the foreign transshipment. So, a special instructions to customs inspectors related to the discharge of transshipped cargo. First is the goods from a foreign port may be transshipped direct from the carrying vessel to another vessel engaged in the coastwise or foreign trade upon receipt of written permission from the collector of customs. Second, when a foreign transshipment permit authorizing the transfer of cargo from a foreign port is received by a customs inspector on board of a foreign vessel, He shall permit the discharge of the consignment, causing it to be checked by marks and numbers. A description of the consignment shall appear in the permit or in a list attached, and the utmost precaution shall be taken that no cargo is discharged on its authority other than that described therein. So number 3, bulk and break bulk cargoes for foreign transshipment shall either be discharged directly into the receiving vessel if it comes alongside, or otherwise transship it to in a lighters or discharged at the pier or eventual loading to the receiving vessel. In the latter case, only lighters capable of being secured, locked, sealed, customs accredited, and insured shall be used. So any deviation from the requirements of this section shall be made only upon instructions from the Collector of Customs or other proper authorities. Fourth is the containerized cargo for foreign transshipment shall be discharged at the pier for eventual loading to the receiving vessel under the same conditions stated in section 15A, item number 2 above. So B. Instructions relative to foreign transshipment by CCCD. So after having duly processed at the deputy collector for operations, the foreign transshipment permit, in case of containerized cargo with its supporting document, shall be coursed through the Customs Container Control Division for posting of container numbers and their eventual loading. The loading inspector assigned to carrying vessel shall verify the correctness of the container numbers indicated in the permit prior to loading of transit or transshipment cargoes on board carrying vessel. So we are here in the last one, which is the section 19, transfer of imported cargo outside CYCFS or the B by CCCT. After having been duly processed at the office of the Deputy Collector for Operations, the permit to transfer the outside CY to CFS shall be coursed through the Customs Container Control Division or its equivalent office for posting the container numbers and their eventual transfer. The permit to transfer to outside CY to CFS shall then be transmitted to the office of the Chief PIO or its equivalent office. So as you can see, in all that we discussed, it is all about the importation and exportations of cargo from foreign vessels, or what are their duties and their responsibilities. Also, what are their operations, the needs or the documents that needs to be submitted for the importation and exportations of cargoes. So, thank you for listening and until next time.